step 28, attaching the axle housing pivots. Again, we're working on the rear this time. So I've grabbed the parts that they want, C15, C16, C18, C17, and we've got all of our hardware there with the screws, the tapping screws, and of course our ball connectors. Now what I think is really cool about this is it doesn't matter whether you cut them all off the parts tree, because even if you get them all mixed up and confused, you can see here that, take this one, C18D. Oh no, well it's marked D. What if I screw this up? Well, you can see that C15 is A, B, C, and D. And if you look on the inside of these pieces, you'll notice it says C. So we know that that one's there. This one, you can see, has a D on it, so we know that that's there. I grab this other one, it says B, so we know that that's there. And of course this one is going to have to say A, which it does. So it's nicely labeled so you don't get this all confused. So I think what we'll do is, let's work on this side first, and then we'll do this side. So I'll set this up and we'll get to work. So if we start with this ball connector, I'm going to grab the ball connector and put it into the box wrench, because when you do that, you've got something to hold. It makes it a lot easier. So the other thing is, when you're sticking this in here, you kind of get a better sense of how level it is, because you've got something bigger to hold instead of just trying to put in the tiny connector into that tiny hole. You've got something solid. So now we can spin this on, and of course it's not a tapping one because it's going into the nut that we put in when we built the axle housing originally. So I'm going to tighten that up, but I'm not going to over tighten. And there we go. There's one of them. So same thing again with the other one. Pop that in the box wrench. I'm going to put this here, kind of get a sense of how level that's going. It's going good. I can feel it's grabbing inside the nut. So I can just spin this on. And there we go. So I haven't done this too tight, but it's tight enough that it's on. Just making some final checks there. But yeah, so there is the axle with the ball connectors in place. So if we grab C16B, so you can see we've got the B, you can see the way that that's shaped, the indented one that's closer, so that the backside has the hole, and then the slope. Well, if you're grabbing the axle the right way so that this joint is on this side, the back side is going to sit like that, so that the hole is at the back of the axle. So we can screw those two on. So I'll just grab a screw. And we'll start that. I'll just get it going in first. And then we'll grab the other screw. Just make sure it's seated properly. Yep. So there you go. There is one of them. So you can see that that flatter area is at the back, and then it basically is sloped forward to the front. So the same thing with the other one. We need A. That's D, C. Well, there we go. We've got A. So again, the slope is facing forward. So we'll grab this again, and it's going to sit there. So we need a screw. the other screw, make sure that that goes in. Seems right. Yep. So there we go. There are the first two on, and you can see they're slightly angled outwards. So in order to do the next one, what you're basically doing is we've been sitting it this way. We're now going to flip it over that way. So not a flip this way. You're basically wanting the joint to still be facing forward. We're now going to flip it this way to be able to install these other ones. And with these, if we look, this one says D, the flat side needs to be facing forward this time around. So we'll put these screws in. And that one in. There we go. So that one's in. So now we can grab the other one. Same thing. It has to be, the flat has to be facing the front. Screw those ones in. So there we go. So there are our mounting brackets on and in place. Now the next thing that we need to do is put on these little screws. Now you'll see that they are already in, and part of that reason is because when I was doing these initially, because I've already done this once, I messed up. And part of it was, and I couldn't figure out why, but there have been some kits where they show you it facing this way, for example, and then when you go to put on the other side, you flip it over like that to put on the other two. And I wasn't paying attention, and you can see that the joint is still facing forward. So essentially, after you do that step, you don't flip it over this way and put the others on. You flip it over this way to put the other ones on. So just be careful when you're doing this, that you make sure that you're seeing this. It was an error that I made, and I went through some of these other steps, and I'm thinking, well, something's not right. And I had to come back to this, and even staring at it, I couldn't see that I had flipped it by going this way, or I should say I had flipped it, by going this way and not this way. It'll make a big difference, and it makes it impossible to finish the truck, as you know, when you get to step 31. So just be careful of the placements. So I'll show you these screws going in, because I'd already done that earlier, but you'll see what I mean, and then we can move on. Now what's interesting is it's showing that there are these little two screws that are going to go into the back side of the axle. And as you know, these ones are going into the other nut that we put on the other side. So I can feel that it's just going in pretty easy, and I'll just tighten it up at the end. But at the moment, I'm not entirely sure what the purpose of them is. The only thing I can think of is that maybe it's for something else later, or they're just trying to make sure that this blocks any dirt or anything from going into there if it was used for something else on another vehicle at some point. Or in the molding process, they're all molded this way, and for the rear, this isn't used. So they just want you to put a screw in there to finish it off, because at the moment there is absolutely no purpose to those two screws. Interesting. So there are the axle pivots all in place, our ball connectors. So we have finished step 28. So now we can move on to step 29, which is attaching the rear arms.